Hello family, welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and leave a like for us, it means a lot to us. Don't forget to share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on notifications so you won't miss our future videos. Thank you. Now sit back and relax as we explore the story together. Celeste and Brad Pitt, two names always associated with the image of an ideal love. Everyone around them admires and praises this relationship as a fairy tale. Celeste, with her kind and self-sacrificing heart, believes she has found her true soulmate in Brad Pitt. Their love seems to be the result of many long years, where each passing day was a mutual support, understanding, and boundless trust. Brad Pitt, with his handsome appearance and thriving career, is not only the ideal image that Celeste has always dreamed of, but also the man she believes will always stand by her, protect her, and love her for life. Their marriage is admired by everyone and regarded as a symbol of perfection. But even in these beautiful moments, there are things that only they truly understand. Celeste and Brad Pitt's relationship, despite being full of happiness, is it truly as perfect as it seems on the outside? Can love really last forever in a world full of challenges and changes? Amidst the sweet picture of love, Celeste feels peace. But she also can't help but have indescribable worries. She constantly wonders whether this love will remain strong. Everything that seems perfect hides doubts that only someone involved can feel. During those long nights, when the silence is only broken by her sighs, Celeste wonders if love can truly endure the challenges, the invisible waves that no one can see. Brad Pitt, although always appearing with a bright smile and absolute confidence, has a part of his inner self that few people know about. Behind the admiring eyes of others, he also carries pressures that are not easy to share. Work, societal demands, and sometimes stress from within himself have gradually created an invisible gap between him and Celeste. But will Celeste notice this change? Will she feel that those wonderful things, though painted with sincere love, can sometimes be blurred by invisible external shifts? The love between Celeste and Brad Pitt, despite being filled with sweet moments, is still a long and challenging journey. Love is like that, not just the sweet moments, but also the moments of worry, the late-night thoughts that only the heart understands. It is a love where both carry sacrifice and absolute trust in each other. However, even the most beautiful love must face challenges that life always brings. Every step they take in this relationship brings a lesson, a challenge that only those involved can truly feel. The warm and loving moments are not only proof of eternal love, but also promises, a belief in a future they will build together. Even if the road ahead holds obstacles they cannot yet see, the story begins here, in the quiet space of love, with unforeseen events waiting ahead. With each passing day, the love between Celeste and Brad Pitt continues, not because of perfection, but because they have chosen each other, even though the future is unknown. It is these imperfect elements that will create an unforgettable story, a journey where every emotion is elevated, with challenges that only true lovers can overcome. The love between Celeste and Brad Pitt is not an ordinary love story, but a journey full of hardships, a deep love that transcends time and relentless challenges. From the first time they met, something very special began to blossom between them. The exchanged glances contained all the unspeakable words, as if they had found a missing piece of their lives. Celeste felt warmth from Brad Pitt from the very first glance, and Brad felt the same. He saw an unusual tenderness in the way Celeste looked at him, as if she was a safe place for him to return to after life's storms. Their relationship was not one of intense passion in a fleeting moment, but rather a solid foundation built on trust and unconditional sharing. They not only loved each other, but also helped and accompanied each other through every life challenge. Celeste was not just a gentle and delicate woman, but also a strong one, willing to sacrifice everything for the one she loved. In her work, she was always dedicated, always wholehearted toward those around her. Every time Brad needed her, she was there, taking care of him, encouraging him to overcome difficulties, whether in work or life. She was always a great source of encouragement to him, the partner, the companion he always needed. Celeste's dedication was not only shown through her work, but also in small daily actions. Every day, she took the time to care for and look after Brad Pitt, never complaining about the tasks that were placed upon her. She willingly did everything so that he would not have to worry, so he could focus on his career and passions. Celeste's love was not about empty words or promises for the future, but about concrete actions, sacrifices that were never calculated. She did not need to prove anything to anyone, because her love for Brad was clear through the things she did for him. For Brad Pitt, this love was not just a sweet story, but also a confirmation of the care and attention he received from Celeste. He knew that no one loved him like she did, and throughout the years together, he felt that Celeste's love had no limits. She was always the one taking care of him during every meal, every sleep, always making him feel safe and loved. Brad knew that with Celeste, he was everything, and she was someone who never demanded or expected anything from him. However, deep in his heart, he felt an unease he couldn't shake, wondering whether their love was truly enough. Could he repay the great sacrifices that Celeste had made for him? One of the greatest sacrifices Celeste made for Brad was the decision to donate her kidney when he fell ill with kidney failure. When the doctors announced that Brad would need a kidney transplant to survive, Celeste did not hesitate, not for a second. She decided to give him part of her own body to help him survive the storm of illness. For Celeste, this was not a difficult decision, but a natural one. She loved Brad too much. She couldn't bear the thought that he might leave her, even knowing that donating a kidney could affect her own health. In Celeste's eyes, nothing was more important than saving the man she loved. It was a grand act, a sacrifice that could never be measured, and only love could drive someone to do such extraordinary things. When Celeste entered the operating room, she did not feel fear. There was only one overwhelming feeling. She had to save Brad. She had to do everything so he could live. Celeste's tears were not because of fear or worry for herself, but only because of love, because of the hope that everything would be okay. Brad Pitt, when he realized Celeste's sacrifice, could not control his emotions. He didn't know what to do to thank her. His tears were not because of the pain of his illness, but because he felt he owed her too much, owed a love he didn't know how to repay. He only knew that he would do everything to love Celeste more, so she wouldn't feel that her sacrifice was in vain. After the surgery, as Brad's health gradually improved, he could more clearly feel the greatness of the love Celeste had for him. During the first few days, he couldn't stop feeling guilty. But gradually he realized that love wasn't just about sweet moments. Sometimes it was about great sacrifices. He knew that he had to try harder to repay Celeste for everything she had done for him. However, even though Brad Pitt had intense feelings for Celeste, he also began to notice a strange distance between them. In the days following the surgery, Celeste continued to love and care for him as before, but deep inside, she felt that their love was no longer the same. Their relationship was slowly changing, not because of a lack of affection, but due to changes in their lives that they couldn't control. The love between Celeste and Brad Pitt was built on great sacrifices, specific actions filled with affection. These sacrifices were not something grandiose, but were small, meaningful deeds, giving without expecting anything in return. That was the solid foundation of their relationship, something that only those who truly love each other can do. And even though challenges would come their way, their love would still endure, even if sometimes those sacrifices were not always reciprocated as hoped. The relationship between Celeste and Brad Pitt was originally a symbol of ideal love in the eyes of everyone. They were the couple that everyone longed for, not only because of their perfection, but also because of the invisible connection between them. But at some point, when the hustle and bustle of life suddenly overshadowed the peaceful moments they once had, signs of trouble began to appear. Brad Pitt, the man who was once the model of strength and confidence, began to show strange behaviors that Celeste couldn't help but notice. She, with her sensitive nature and attention to detail, gradually realized that he was no longer the same. Their conversations were becoming fewer, not because they no longer loved each other, but because the tension was evident in every word Brad said. Every time Celeste asked him about work or what was happening in his life, Brad would give vague responses like, "Work is too stressful," or "I have too many things to worry about." Celeste, who always understood him deeply, realized that something was clouding Brad's mind. In the past, whenever something bothered him, Celeste was always the first person he turned to. But now, he seemed to be avoiding her more and more. Celeste felt that there was an increasing, vague distance growing between them. This wasn't just seen in their brief conversations, but also in the way Brad looked at her. His gaze no longer contained the passionate love it once had, but instead, an indescribable coldness. She began to wonder if she herself was the cause of this change, or if Brad was facing a challenge he didn't want to share with her. In the following days, Celeste grew even more worried about their relationship. She could not deny that something was changing. Every time they were together, Celeste always felt that she was the only one holding the relationship together. Brad seemed to exist in that space without truly being present. Every word he spoke became more vague. Their conversations were no longer meaningful and only consisted of brief greetings. Celeste, though loving him deeply, could not deny that their relationship was gradually changing. Every day, she felt the distance between them growing and becoming harder to fill. Celeste tried to understand Brad, but it seemed like he had become a different person. The meetings, the times they shared old memories together, were becoming less frequent. Instead, there were brief encounters, nights when Celeste sat alone, staring into the void, questioning what she had done wrong. She didn't know what to do to resolve these feelings, didn't know how to bring him closer again, to revive the love she had once felt. Whenever Celeste asked Brad about her concerns, he always gave vague explanations and appeared irritated. He told her not to worry about small things, but Celeste couldn't help but feel that these small things were growing, like an unstoppable undertow. Every answer from Brad lacked the sincerity it once had, and Celeste began to suspect that he was hiding something. It wasn't that she didn't trust him, but love had made her more sensitive to the smallest changes. The anxiety and unease in Celeste's heart grew stronger each day. She began to realize that she was no longer the most important person in Brad's life. He no longer came to her to share his worries, the pressures of work, or life's challenges. Everything seemed to have changed. The calls were no longer like before, and the messages were becoming fewer. An invisible void was slowly appearing in Celeste's life. She didn't know if she was living in the memories of love, or if she was the one living in a relationship that was no longer as it once was. One evening, when they were having dinner together, Celeste decided to open up, sharing the worries she had been keeping inside for some time. But as she began to speak, Brad simply looked at her silently, without responding. Suddenly, Celeste felt that the distance between them had become irreparable. His responses had become cold and distant, as if what she was saying no longer mattered. In that moment, Celeste understood that what she was feeling was not a mistake, but clear signs of a change in their relationship. She knew she couldn't continue living with these feelings, but she couldn't face this change alone. Their relationship, a love Celeste once believed would last forever, was now slowly falling apart under small signs that she could not ignore. Celeste couldn't stop asking herself, could this relationship still be saved? Would the love that she and Brad had built be swept away by unforeseen circumstances? Or was this just the beginning of an ending that neither of them could avoid? Each day passed, and Celeste could only watch Brad from afar, hoping for a change, a return of the love she had once experienced. But the signs of trouble grew clearer, and Celeste realized that if she didn't address these distances soon, there might be no opportunity to return. The story of Celeste and Brad Pitt which seemed like it would always be a journey full of roses, unexpectedly took a painful and challenging turn. When Brad Pitt was diagnosed with kidney failure, everything changed in an instant. The world seemed to collapse at Celeste's feet when she heard the news. Every step she took was suddenly halted by worry, fear, and a sense of helplessness in the face of the illness that her beloved husband was fighting. Brad, whose health had once been the foundation for both of them, now lay motionless, no longer the strong man Celeste had known. There had been so many times Celeste had imagined a future full of happiness, where the two of them would overcome all challenges together. But now, those images suddenly seemed to fade. In the quiet hospital room, Brad lay in bed, his breathing weak and labored. Though the doctors had told her that without a kidney transplant he would not survive, Celeste could not accept that. She felt every beat of her heart as if it were slowing down with Brad's weakening condition. She looked at him, and in that moment, everything became clearer than ever. She was willing to do anything to save the man she loved. That day, Celeste made a decision without hesitation. She would donate one of her kidneys to Brad so that he could live, so their love would not have to end right there. The feeling was not just fear, but a strong determination, a love so great that no one could understand it unless they were in her position. Every word she spoke to the doctor, every moment she prepared for the surgery, was filled with emotions that could not be put into words. There was a pain that only those who love deeply could understand. It was the pain of sacrifice, of committing to give a part of her body to another for one reason only: love. Celeste did not think about the consequences for herself. In her mind at that moment, there was only one goal: to save Brad. She looked into his eyes. Her tears were not from fear for herself, but from love. She knew that if she didn't act now, she would live with regret for the rest of her life. The feelings of anxiety and helplessness had surrounded her for the past few days, but now she felt a powerful determination rising within her. She couldn't let him go, couldn't let the man she loved most in the world suffer through a life without her. In that moment, Celeste looked at Brad, saying nothing, but her eyes held everything that words could not express. He didn't need to ask, because she was clear in her decision, even though she knew that donating a kidney would be a huge challenge. Her love for Brad was greater than anything else. She was ready to face the physical pain, the worries about her own health, just so that he could continue living. That was unconditional love. Love that transcended all physical and mental barriers. Not everyone could do this, but Celeste did not hesitate. The moment Celeste walked into the operating room, her heart felt as though it were breaking into pieces. She felt pain, not only because of the preparation for surgery, but also because of the worry for Brad. She could not predict the future, could not be certain of what would happen after the surgery. But the only thing she knew was that she would do everything she could to save him. As the doctors prepared her, Celeste felt that all the words, all the looks from her loved ones and the doctors seemed unimportant. She only knew that if she didn't do this, she wouldn't be able to forgive herself. As she was being prepared for surgery, Celeste thought about the years she and Brad had spent together. She remembered the sweet moments, the happy times they had built together, and wondered if their love was strong enough to overcome this challenge. But at that moment, a strange sense of peace filled her heart. She knew that, no matter what, their love would never fade. She would always be there for him, even if she had to face any challenge. Celeste no longer felt fear. Her love for Brad was stronger than all the worries and fears in her heart. She had made her decision, and now only calmness and confidence remained. She knew that whatever happened, her love for Brad would never change. And with that belief, Celeste entered the operating room, her heart full of resolve. When the surgery was over and Celeste woke up, she felt her body tired and in pain, but her heart was full of peace. She had done the right thing, and when Brad finally woke up and saw her, he couldn't say a word. but quietly squeezed her hand, as if wanting to thank her in the only way he could. His eyes, with silent tears, seemed to feel the great love Celeste had for him. It was the moment when both of them knew that their love had overcome every obstacle, and they would continue walking together, stronger than ever. That moment, when Celeste sacrificed a part of her body to save her beloved husband, was the turning point in their love story. It was not just a sacrifice of the body, but also a confirmation that love is the strongest thing, capable of overcoming any difficulty or challenge in life. And no matter what the future held, this love would forever exist in both of their hearts. After the tense surgery, when Brad Pitt woke up, everything seemed to fall back into the path they had once dreamed of. The hospital room, once filled with anxiety and a suffocating atmosphere, now began to have light. A sense of relief enveloped Celeste when she saw him open his eyes, looking at her with tired but grateful eyes. Every moment of recovery was an important step, a hope beyond measure for the new future she and Brad would build together. Brad looked at Celeste, his gaze full of boundless gratitude. She had done everything to save him. She was not only a wonderful wife, but also a friend, a mother, a strong daughter in his life. The tears that fell from Brad's eyes were not tears of physical pain, but tears of deep gratitude. He knew that he owed her an unpayable debt. He had promised to himself and to Celeste that he would do everything he could to repay her sacrifice. He spoke words full of emotion, promising a bright future where he would always be by her side, protect her, and love her as she had loved him. In the early days after the surgery, Celeste felt like she was living in a fairy tale, where love had overcome all challenges. She felt joy and happiness as she saw Brad recovering day by day. Seeing him smile, although weak, it was a sign of revival, a return of faith after months of hardship. Everything seemed to be on the right track, and Brad's promises felt like a firm commitment, rekindling her belief in their love. But gradually, over time, signs of trouble began to appear that Celeste couldn't ignore. Although he was physically recovering, the changes in Brad's mindset were hard to hide. His attitude gradually became colder, with no longer the care and attention he had once shown. Every time Celeste talked to him, his responses became shorter, fewer words, and lacked the warmth she once felt. Celeste tried not to pay attention to these changes, but deep down, a feeling of unease began to grow. Every time he turned away without saying anything, every time he just nodded to her questions, Celeste felt an empty space between them that couldn't be filled. She began to feel the distance slowly manifest in their relationship. Brad, though still there, seemed no longer the man she had once loved with all her heart. The feeling was a lingering pain that couldn't be expressed in words. As time passed, the mornings they spent together having breakfast, the evenings sitting together talking about future dreams, now only existed as vague memories. Their communication had become less frequent, no longer the gentle conversations about what was happening in their lives, about things that made them happy or worried. Every time Celeste asked him about work or how he was feeling, Brad would just coldly respond, "Work's the same, nothing special." Celeste couldn't help but notice the change in his attitude. She felt like an outsider in her own life with him. Every time she looked into Brad's eyes, she no longer saw the love she once saw, only the silent distance. All the hope she once had for their love now started to fade, replaced by emptiness, a gap that couldn't be filled. Celeste couldn't help but ask herself whether her love for Brad was still strong enough to keep him around, or if she was simply an accidental companion left behind. She had done everything, sacrificed part of her body, given her heart entirely to him. So why did it feel like this? Unnamed worries began to invade her mind. Could it be that her love wasn't enough to pull Brad closer? Could it be that in his mind, she was no longer important? Or simply that the love between them was no longer the same? Brad's change was not only reflected in his cold attitude, but also in the gentle yet sharp criticisms he directed at Celeste. These words were no longer words of encouragement or love, but comments that unintentionally hurt her. "You're overreacting. Not everything is as bad as you think," he said, with a tone lacking empathy. "Things aren't as bad as you see them." These words were not just simple criticism, but a lack of care for Celeste's feelings. What she needed was sharing, understanding, not unnecessary criticism. And Celeste, though she had tried so hard to preserve her feelings, couldn't help but feel wounded by those words, like a sharp knife cutting into her heart. These criticisms were not only Brad's lack of care for her, but also a sign of the distance in their love. It seemed like the love she had given him so completely was no longer appreciated. Every time Celeste tried to understand what Brad was going through, he would only respond with coldness and indifference. The promises of a bright future now seemed to be empty words, without truth behind them. The relationship between Celeste and Brad, once beautiful and whole, was now being tested by Brad's mental changes. Celeste felt her heart breaking. She had sacrificed so much, given all her love to him, but it seemed like all she received in return was coldness and indifference. She didn't know what to do to restore what they had, or if this love could still be saved. The dreams of a bright future now felt like faint illusions. The happy moments they once shared had become sad memories, and the promises had been replaced by silence. Celeste no longer knew what to do to salvage their relationship. She loved Brad, but could this love still overcome all the changes they were facing? In these moments, Celeste couldn't help but ask, could this love return to what it once was? Or had it reached a turning point that couldn't be undone? Since Bianca returned to Celeste's life, everything seemed to have changed. It was a change that Celeste couldn't recognize immediately, but once she did, it was already too late. Bianca, Celeste's longtime college friend, had always had a magnetic allure. Not only did she possess a radiant beauty, but she also had a confident lifestyle that brightened even the darkest spaces. Everyone around her couldn't help but be drawn to her charm and excellent communication skills. She was strong, independent, and always knew how to take control of any situation. It was Bianca's freedom and power in the way she lived that highlighted Celeste's gentleness and sensitivity. While Celeste always lived a humble life, giving without expecting anything in return, Bianca was the embodiment of confidence and independence. This created a strange contrast between the two close friends, and as time passed, Celeste began to feel that a significant distance was growing between her and Bianca. Bianca's return after many years of absence was not a simple event. She wasn't just an old friend reconnecting. She was a breath of fresh air that blew into Celeste and Brad's life. At first, Celeste had no doubts about the relationship between Brad and Bianca. They had been close friends since college, and Celeste believed that Bianca's return was simply a meeting between old friends, nothing to worry about. Their meetings were full of cheerful conversations about past memories, laughter about the old days. However, with each of these meetings, Brad and Bianca became closer, not only in the way they spoke, but also in the gestures and looks exchanged between them. Celeste began to sense the change, but she couldn't easily pinpoint what exactly was changing. There was something between Brad and Bianca that she couldn't explain. The way they laughed together for too long, the private conversations she wasn't part of. All of these made Celeste feel uneasy, even though she didn't want to admit it. She didn't want to suspect her friends or her husband, but a vague suspicion had begun to form in Celeste's mind. Every time she saw Brad and Bianca laughing and talking happily, she felt her heart tighten, an uncomfortable feeling rising up that she couldn't shake off. Since the surgery, Brad had gradually changed. His recovery was not just physical, but also a psychological transformation. In the first few days after the surgery, he was very grateful to Celeste for everything she had done for him. But over time, his attitude toward Celeste became colder. The sweet inquiries were gone, replaced by silence or evasive answers. Celeste began to feel lonely, as though she was no longer important in Brad's life. He no longer looked at her with the same loving gaze, and the promises of a bright future seemed to have faded with time. As the days went by, while she still tried to maintain everything, Brad gradually found a connection with Bianca. Their private meetings, the small stories that Celeste wasn't involved in, stirred up an indescribable feeling of suspicion in her heart. With each meeting, Bianca and Brad seemed to grow closer. Their encounters were no longer just pleasant conversations, but moments filled with hidden meaning that Celeste couldn't help but notice. Quick glances, accidental gestures that seemed intentional, all created a tension that only Celeste could feel. She didn't dare to think that something was happening, but unhealthy feelings started to fill her mind. With each encounter, she saw them getting more intimate, laughing more, and Brad's gaze seemed always to follow Bianca, no longer giving her the affectionate glances like before. Then, one day, when Celeste accidentally saw Brad and Bianca leaving a cafe together, her heart sank. They were no longer just friends, but people with an unusually close, intimate relationship. The glances exchanged between them, the accidental touches, made Celeste's heart ache. She couldn't understand what was happening, but she clearly felt that something was going on between Brad and Bianca, and she was the only one who couldn't comprehend it. Celeste couldn't stop her suspicions. One evening, while searching for a book in the living room, she accidentally noticed Brad's phone left forgotten on the table. A message from Bianca appeared on the screen, just a few short words. "Miss you." Celeste's heart felt as though it was being squeezed. She didn't need to read any further. What she had seen was already crystal clear. Mixed emotions, pain, anger, and betrayal rose in Celeste's heart. She couldn't believe that Brad had been secretly deceiving her with Bianca, the friend she had once trusted. The love she had given to Brad, her sacrifice, had now been betrayed in the harshest way. Celeste could not bear this betrayal. Tears that she couldn't hold back began to fall, each drop a pain, a disappointment that couldn't be erased. The love she had for Brad now seemed meaningless, as he hurt her and deceived her with her closest friend. Celeste didn't know what to do, didn't know how to face this betrayal. She loved Brad, but was there any reason left to continue loving him after he had chosen to betray her with Bianca? The relationship between Brad and Bianca was no longer discreet. It had become an obvious relationship, a forbidden one that Celeste could not accept. With each passing moment, she felt more and more left behind, deceived by the people she had trusted the most. Her love now felt like a wound slowly bleeding, and nothing could save it anymore. Celeste stood frozen in front of her phone screen, her hands trembling as her eyes suddenly stopped on a message no one could have expected. It was a message from Bianca, the best friend to whom she had entrusted her entire faith, the one she had considered a sister throughout all these years. "Miss you." Just 3 short words, but they struck Celeste's heart like sharp daggers. She couldn't believe what she had just seen. Her heart seemed to skip a beat. The air around her grew so heavy that she felt suffocated. She looked again to make sure there was no mistake, but those words appeared clearly, undeniable. It felt like a powerful wave sweeping away everything she had ever trusted. Celeste couldn't comprehend it. Why Bianca, the best friend she had trusted completely over all these years? Why would Brad betray her with the friend she had considered a sister, the one who had always supported their relationship? Conflicting emotions swirled in her mind. Part of her wanted to sigh in relief, not wanting to believe in this painful truth. But another part of her forced her to face what was too clear to ignore. The pain wasn't just from the betrayal, but from the feeling of being left behind, deceived by the one person she loved and trusted most. Tears began to fall uncontrollably. She couldn't remember how long she had cried, only that her heart felt like it was breaking. How could she continue living in a world where everything she had trusted was shattered by this deceit? The love she had given Brad, the unconditional sacrifices, the acceptance, the care, had now become a game he was playing with Bianca. The days that had passed, the sweet moments between them, were now gone, leaving only an empty void. With tears falling on her face, Celeste knew she couldn't just stand there forever. She knew she had to face the truth, had to speak directly with Brad. She couldn't continue living in this deceit. Her life couldn't revolve around lies and fake love. She decided to call Brad, a call that was unavoidable. When he picked up, silence enveloped the line. No one spoke. Only the heavy breaths and the loud beating of Celeste's heart filled the space. She felt the emptiness, as though no one was there. Only the echo of betrayal remained. "Brad, we need to talk." Her voice couldn't maintain its calmness. She was starting to feel tense, but inside, anger was rising. "I saw the message from Bianca. I want to know what's going on." "Why her?" "Brad, why Bianca?" Brad stayed silent, perhaps not expecting everything to be exposed. Each passing second felt like an internal battle, a battle Brad couldn't avoid. He had no explanation, only a prolonged silence. Celeste couldn't stand the silence. Each passing second felt like a knife stabbing her heart. "You betrayed me, you and Bianca. I don't understand why you would do this to me. After everything I've done for you, I loved you. Brad, I did everything to keep this relationship, but now you've hurt me like this." "Celeste, you don't understand," Brad said, but his voice wasn't filled with remorse. It was evasive, as though he didn't want to face what he had done. "I didn't think it would get so complicated. It was just a misunderstanding." But there was no remorse in his words. They hit Celeste like a slap to the face. He wouldn't take responsibility, didn't see that what he had done had completely shattered the trust she had placed in him. "Misunderstanding?" Celeste bitterly laughed. Each word felt like it was tearing her emotions apart. "Do you think I'll believe that excuse?" "What did you do with Bianca?" "Brad, I gave you everything. I loved you to the point of forgetting myself, and you betrayed me. Do you think I'll forgive you easily?" Celeste's words were like flames that burned everything left in their relationship. Anger could no longer be contained. She continued, "Wasn't my love enough? You've lied to me for so many months, and I could only love you with everything I had. And this is how you treat me?" Brad still couldn't provide a convincing explanation. "You don't understand. Celeste, I can't explain it further. I just wanted to keep everything normal." But Celeste couldn't accept those words. She felt like she had been thrown away in her own life, as if the dream she and Brad had once created had now become a pile of rubble. She couldn't forgive him, couldn't continue living in a relationship that had been betrayed. "No, Brad, I can't go on. I can't live with someone who has lied to me, with someone I can't trust anymore." When she hung up, silence took over the room. Celeste felt like she had just lost everything. There was no reason left to hold on to this relationship. The love she had given with all her heart was now shattered into irreparable pieces. The relationship she had believed would last forever was now just a sad memory. She knew she couldn't live in this betrayal, but the pain was too great for her to move on. Celeste looked into the void before her, the emptiness consuming her heart. Everything in her life, all the emotions about love, about sacrifices, had become meaningless. She couldn't believe what she had gone through. The pain, the disappointment, none of it compared to the betrayal she had to endure. After the shock of betrayal, Celeste felt like a ship lost at sea, adrift in a storm of pain, not knowing where to go or what to do. She was no longer herself, no longer the strong woman who had always stood resilient in the face of every challenge. Each morning when she woke up, she felt like a stranger in her own life. The dreams, the beautiful memories, were no longer in her mind, replaced by nightmares, endless tears, and a heart full of wounds. In the early days after the breakup, Celeste could hardly escape the darkness of her own mind. She avoided everyone, not wanting to meet anyone, not wanting to face the painful truth. She cut off contact with Brad and Bianca, two people she had trusted more than anyone else, and now they had left deep wounds in her that could not heal immediately. But then, with no other choice, she realized that she couldn't live in this pain forever. She couldn't allow herself to continue sinking in sorrow and forget about herself. Despite the shame and disappointment still in her heart, Celeste decided that she had to change. She had to start over. She began to return to the simplest things, the things she had forgotten in her busy life. She began taking walks each morning, rediscovering the little things that made her feel peaceful. The first steps were slow, but they were decisive steps because Celeste knew she couldn't live in the past forever. She had to find herself again, to rise from the pain she had endured and recreate the life she deserved. Throughout this journey, family and friends were the indispensable companions. They were the ones who were always there, offering their hands when she needed them, and showing her that love was an essential part of the healing process. Her mother, the woman who had always offered Celeste comfort in every glance, helped her find trust in life again. Her mother didn't say much, but quietly stayed by her side, holding her hand whenever Celeste felt like she was about to collapse. Her mother always taught her that love can make us fall, but only we can get back up, and love will also help us rise from the ashes. Celeste's friends, though they met less often, always sent her encouraging messages, reminding her that she wasn't alone in this battle. They all knew that Celeste was a strong person, and they believed that she would overcome all difficulties. Short conversations and dinners filled with laughter helped Celeste understand that love doesn't just come from one person, but from all directions in life. The sincere emotions from her family and friends gradually helped her regain faith in herself and in life. Still, Celeste knew that to truly heal, she needed to confront the emotions within her. And that was why she decided to begin psychological therapy. In the early therapy sessions, Celeste felt like she was entering an unfamiliar space where she had to face the emotions she had kept hidden for so long. She cried a lot during the first sessions. The emotions she had suppressed for so long erupted, and she couldn't hold them back anymore. Every time she talked about what she had been through, tears fell again, but instead of feeling weak, she felt as though she was being freed. During the first session, the therapist asked her a question that made her think deeply. "Celeste, can you forgive yourself?" That question felt like a shock to Celeste. She realized that all this time, she wasn't just trying to forgive Brad and Bianca, but also herself. She blamed herself, thinking she wasn't good enough, not strong enough to see the changes in Brad. But through each session, she gradually understood that it wasn't her fault. She couldn't control everything in life, and sometimes allowing herself to hurt was part of the growth process. She learned to look at herself with eyes of self-respect, and gradually, forgiveness for herself began to bloom in her mind. She no longer had to blame herself. She had done everything she could to keep the love, and she had lived with an open heart. She couldn't change the past, but she could change the future. She began to learn how to love herself again, put herself first, and gradually feel the strength from within. Each day, Celeste became a little stronger. She started to rediscover the simple joys that she had overlooked before. She learned to take care of herself, travel, take new classes, do things she had never done before. It was a long process, but she knew she was on the right path. And when she looked in the mirror, she no longer saw a weak, sorrowful woman, but a strong, confident woman full of hope. Celeste's healing journey wasn't an easy one. There were days when she felt she couldn't go on, nights when she sat crying in solitude, thinking about what she had lost. But gradually, she learned how to rise from the pain, how to face the challenges, and how to become more resilient. The pain had become the driving force that helped her be reborn, helping her understand that life wasn't always fair. But those very challenges made her stronger. The love she had lost would never return, but she would continue to live a life full of hope and love. She believed there would be new opportunities, new relationships, and she was ready to embrace them. In the end, Celeste realized that although life might bring deep wounds, they would also make her stronger, more resilient. And in the hardest moments, she learned to love herself. And that was the turning point that allowed her to be reborn, to continue her journey ahead, a journey full of light and hope. After a long period of suffering and betrayal, Celeste finally found herself again. Her heart was no longer just broken pieces that couldn't be mended, but had begun to heal little by little, day by day. She learned to love herself again, to accept the truth, and to move forward in life. With each passing day, she felt that life continued, that she could still dream and hope. And when she was ready, a new person appeared in her life. Ethan. Ethan, with his sincerity and warmth, lit up Celeste's cold heart. He was not in a rush, did not pressure her to open up, but patiently entered her life gently, like a refreshing breeze. The love Celeste felt from Ethan was unlike anything she had ever experienced. It was not intense or passionate, but a calm, mutual respect and a mature love. Ethan did not love her for what she had, but loved her for who she was, with the wounds in her heart and the life lessons she had gone through. He saw the strength in her, and he loved her for that. With Ethan, Celeste learned that love is not about perfection, but about acceptance. No one is perfect, but true love is about accepting each other's flaws and growing together. She no longer had to live in the shadows of the past, nor blame herself for mistakes that weren't hers to begin with. She had learned to forgive, not only others, but also herself. And it was this forgiveness that opened a new door for true love. A love that was not judgmental, not about blame, but about understanding and caring for each other. The love between Celeste and Ethan was a wonderful combination of old wounds and new hopes. They didn't need to rush, didn't need to do anything grand to prove their love. They only needed to be together, share peaceful moments in life, and build a happy future together. Ethan was the one Celeste had always been searching for throughout her life. Someone imperfect, but perfect for her. He was the one who brought her the peace she had always longed for. The one who helped her find trust in love and in life again. One day, after a long time of love and nurturing, Ethan proposed to Celeste in a peaceful, warm setting. They were walking together in a small park where the peach blossoms were in full bloom, and in that space, Ethan knelt down before her, took her hand, and said, "Celeste, I can't imagine life without you. I love you, love everything about you, and I want to spend the rest of my life building a new life with you. Will you marry me?" At that moment, all of Celeste's emotions overwhelmed her. She couldn't believe what was happening, as though a beautiful dream was coming true. Her tears fell, not from pain, but from happiness, from gratitude for life, for finding the man who truly deserved to love her. She nodded, smiled brightly, and said, "I agree, Ethan. I agree to be your wife." The wedding day of Celeste and Ethan took place in a warm, loving atmosphere. The wedding wasn't a grand event, but a simple ceremony with family and close friends, those who had always been by their side through difficult times. In the soft light of candles, Celeste wore a pure white wedding dress, hand in hand with Ethan, walking down the aisle. She was no longer the weak woman from before, but a strong, confident woman, one who knew how to love and cherish herself. And at the small altar, amidst the blessings, they officially became husband and wife, beginning a new journey in life. The vows at the wedding were not promises of a life without hardships, but commitments to face challenges together. They promised to build a happy life together, to never give up when facing difficulties, and to always be there for each other no matter what happened. These vows, though simple, were incredibly sacred, the culmination of the true love they had shared as they overcame all the suffering of the past. At the end of the story, Celeste looked to the future with renewed faith and hope. She had gone through a challenging journey, and now she stood at a place where she could begin again, to build a new life. She had learned that love was not about perfection, but about patience, forgiveness, and growing from the wounds. She had learned that as long as you rise after every fall, never give up. Life will always open up new opportunities, opportunities to love again, to live a full life. Celeste's life was no longer just about pain, but a journey full of promise. From the tears, from the wounds, she was reborn, found herself again, and realized that true strength comes from accepting and loving oneself. And in Ethan's eyes, she found faith in love, in life, and in herself. A new chapter had opened, and she would walk that path with the belief that the future was always full of new opportunities, new joys, and loved ones ready to come by her side. The message of Celeste's story is the resilience in love and in life. no matter how much pain and betrayal the past holds. If you know how to rise and love yourself, the future always opens up new opportunities. Life is not just a journey to overcome challenges, but also an opportunity to start again, to grow, and to love. Believe in yourself, and trust that life will bring beautiful things.